magical experimenters. Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to my latest live stream video. Today I thought I would talk about how I've been applying essentialism to my life, and really in the process, kind of share how this applies to magical work as well. So that way you can learn a little bit about it. So let's start with what essentialism is. Essentialism is a philosophy that really explores how to make your life simple. Um, how to focus on only the essential instead of allowing yourself to deal with needless complexity. And needless complexity is really defined as anything that is a distraction or takes up your time or otherwise causes you to be less productive, and doesn't really bring you a sense of joy and purpose. So I think these are very important things. And I think that when you're looking at building your life, and manifesting your life, you really need to focus in on the essential. And in the kind of environment we live in, that can be very hard. I mean, we live in a distraction prone environment. We've got our phones going off all the times. We've got social media happening. We've got, streaming TV stations. Well, not stations, but you know what I mean? Streaming channels like Netflix and Hulu and all these other things. And it can be a huge distraction. And I'm definitely sometimes have been guilty of getting distracted by different things, instead of focusing as much as I want on other things. So, I've definitely been, over the last couple of years, been applying essentialism to my life. I first read about essentialism in 2018, and when I read about it, it really just kind of impressed me because it helped me to get clear on like what was the joy and purpose of my life, which was really my magical practice and my writing. And me having that realization allowed me to pivot away from things that were distractions that weren't really bringing me a huge sense of joy and were actually really bringing me down in a lot of ways because they were taking away from the efficacy and quality of my life. So, once I realized that, it really helped me to get focused on what was absolutely essential to my life. Now, if you're a frequent flyer on here, please take a moment and like this video. And if you're new to this channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button and then click the notification bell. That way you get notified each time I go live. And, obviously, I'd love to have you comment on here if you feel so inclined. So, so I read about essentialism in 2018 and I started applying it to my life. I applied it in terms of the fact that I realized like I didn't want to do coaching anymore. It wasn't really, I wasn't really doing it for the right reasons. It wasn't from a sense of joy or purpose. It was from a sense of trying to emancipate myself from, a daytime job, but doing it because I didn't believe in myself as a writer was what it really boiled down to. I didn't believe that I could make a living from my writing. And, it was kind of it was an eye-opening realization when I really sat down and recognized that the reason I was doing certain things was because I was trying to make time for my writing, but that what I was actually doing was taking away time from my writing. I wasn't writing that much. And once I pivoted and started focusing on what was essential, I started writing a lot more. And I became, and I'm definitely happier as a result of that because writing is one of my huge passions. It's absolutely essential to me. And then, I also realized at the same time that my magical practice is essential to me. I mean, part of that's because I write about it, of course, but part of it's just because I love practicing magic. And so, that was a no-brainer. I mean, I was already actively doing magic. I do magic every single day pretty much, but it was still good for me to have that realization that this is what is essential. Well, as you know, in the last few years, I've gone through a lot of changes. I mean, I went and I was working at a job, and then I got out of that job because I was making enough money. It was really the pandemic bubble, but I was making enough money from my book sales that it looked like I could cover myself. Then I got divorced. And after I got divorced, I started doing DoorDash full time while trying to figure out my situation. And then, I've in the last year, and it's been a year when I think about it. I mean, I got divorced a little over a year ago. I left my ex-wife a little over a year ago. And I was definitely, I mean, when I look back at my time, last year at this time, I was definitely in the crazy space. I was not in a great mental headspace at all. I was I was working through a lot of stuff. That's okay though. I mean, that's part of life. That's what happens with changes. But getting divorced kind of forced me to go essential because I had to streamline down. I had like 10 boxes and a couple of other things to my name. That was it. And that was basically all I had left of my life. I pared down a lot of things, and it was a hard thing to do, but it was a good thing to do. It really kind of it liberated me in a huge way. So, and then I kind of had to deal with the reality in this last year of like I'm gonna have to do some type of daytime work for a while. I mean, I do love writing, and I'm doing everything I can to get more books out there. And I've started to really get fully on board with my magical consulting and with my teaching and things like that as well. And so that stuff is taken off, but it's going to take a while to probably get to the point where that is enough, where I'm making enough money to support myself with that. And I'm okay with that. I've made peace with it. And I think that was one of the things that really was good for me about essentialism, is that essentialism kind of like helps you to realize, like, focus on what's essential. Figure out what you really want to do. And that might mean that you go and you explore multiple things, but then you figure out like what out of those things is really important to you. And then you figure out like what you need to do to support that. And so in my case, I ended up finding work that was 100% remote that allows me to, work at home, which is good because that means less time spent like commuting or things like that. And what I've been doing is I've been gradually stabilizing my life and rooting it. I got one job, and then after that, I got a better paying job just recently. I've bought a house, and I've done all of these moves have been made from a place of what's essential. Like some people will be like, well, why did you go and buy a house? Well, I bought a house because I realized that I didn't want to pay rent for the rest of my life. That was non-essential, and it was a distraction because it was like, how much of that money is going towards somebody that, whereas I could be putting that money investing in myself. So every time I make a mortgage payment, I'm basically investing in the equity of this home and getting a bit more ownership of it, which makes a lot more sense to me from a perspective of wealth. Of course, I'm on the hook for taking care of the home, but at the same time, I also get the joy of being able to do stuff with that home. One of the things that I've come away with recently, I went last weekend to this gardening center. My magical partner took me there, and it was really cool. I checked out these different plants and ended up buying a few and started planting them. And I began to think to myself, like, a couple things. One, I don't really want to mow the lawn. I have a lawn to mow right now. And so this is like non-essential. And then I was like, but I like gardening, and that is essential. So like now, like I'm starting to do some research into how I can turn my lawn into a garden. So that's going to be a multi-year process. I can already tell you that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm starting to look into it, and I'm excited about it. I'm like, this is a thing. And of course, this is going to give me a chance to learn how to work with plants more and to develop a relationship with them. That could be really helpful, and also develop a relationship with the spirits of the land here. So it's one of those cases where with the focusing of essentialism, one of the ways that I always like to look at it is how can I apply it to my spiritual work. And like in this case, learning to work with plants, learn to garden is kind of an opportunity for me to redefine my relationship with the land here, but also redefine my relationship with myself and my spiritual practice. It's another direction for me to go in. So it's kind of one of those interesting things where you end up discovering these things, and you start exploring your life, and you start thinking about things. And that's really what essentialism is about, is it helps you to explore like what is essential to your life. And sometimes you have to go in some unusual directions to find that. One of the other things that I've been doing with essentialism is I've been really looking at it in terms of changing some of my habits. Now, I'm the kind of person who typically has like a stack of books that I'm reading all at the same time. And I recently came to the realization, like, I'm not making a lot of progress on these books. I mean, they're great books to read, but I'm only getting so far. And so what I decided to do is I decided to make a change where I started reading only like one book. So what I've been doing is I've read my way through about 5 or 6 books now that I otherwise would have taken me months, if not even longer, to get through. And I've been removing the bookmarks and kind of putting them on the bookmark altar. My goal is to basically get it pared down to only having like maybe bookmarks in 4 books at a time. I do like to have multiple books because I like to be reading different topics. It always informs the other. But it gotten to the point where I had like bookmarks in like 15 different books, if not more. And it was just crazy. Like I wasn't really getting anything done. So, I realized that I needed to make a change there. I needed to transform my approach to reading. And that again came down to an essentialism thing. Like, there's such a thing as spreading yourself too thin. And this is something I've always been guilty of. Like if this is one thing that I can say I've done, it's that I've spread myself too thin. And this is what essentialism as a discipline has been helping me to recognize and change. Like how I can be more focused, how I can get more things done, and how I can be less distracted. One of the other things that I did is I recently quit my streaming services. I unsubscribed from Netflix. I unsubscribed from Amazon Prime. I'm about to unsubscribe from Hulu. Well, not unsubscribe. I'm going to put that one on hold. I like to watch Shark Tank, so the last episode just came out. I want to finish watching that, and then after that, I'm going to put it on hold for a few months, and then I'll probably bring it back on because I like watching Shark Tank, and that to me is well worth it. But with these other ones, I'm changing my approach. What I'm going to do is maybe 1 month out of the year, maybe 2 at most, I'll resubscribe for a bit. And the reason I'll do that is because there are some shows that I'm enjoying watching on there. But it's like I have all this other stuff that I could be doing. There's other things that I enjoy. There's shows that I bought, like movies and things like that I have that I haven't watched in years. And I'm like, I could do that. I can enjoy those things. So I've chosen to basically make that change and save myself some money in the process, which I think is a good thing. So, I mean, that's another example of essentialism. And really, it boils down to this. I've recently had this very important realization around like, what do I want to manifest in my life? Like, what should my life look like? And I've been thinking about that a lot. I've had this last year to really kind of put things into perspective, a lot because so much has changed. And as I was talking with my mom recently, she pointed out to me, she's like, you have gone through all these big changes. Like, you just need to stabilize. And she's right. Well, part of how you do that, though, is you do figure out what's essential and you let go of everything else that's non-essential and then focus in on things. And one of the things that, I really like about my current home, and you can probably tell this, is it's fairly minimalistic. There's not a ton of stuff in here. And I don't really want it to get to the point where there's lots of stuff. I think that when there's, having lived in a cluttered home, I can tell you that a cluttered home is really distracting. And a lot of times you really don't need the things that you think you need. Like I have one bookshelf devoted toward board games. And my rule now with that is that with board games, I'm going to go through every so often. And if I'm not playing some games, I'm going to get rid of them. If I'm not using those games, I'm going to get rid of them, and I might replace them with other games. I might not. The same thing with my books. Like I'm going to go through and I'm going to read. There's some books that I know I'm going to read again and again and again. I'm going to keep them. They bring me joy and satisfaction. But I don't want to just continue to buy tons and tons of books. Having literally culled down over half my book collection when I got divorced, I can tell you that like not having to lug all those books around made a difference. I've bought some since then, but they've all been things that have been directly related to my interest, and I'm not just holding on to any of them, for just the reason to hold on to them. So often we get weighed down with our things, and I think one of the best things that you can do is liberate yourself. If you want to manifest a specific type of life, you have to be willing to examine like what is in your life right now that's holding you back from it, and that's where essentialism can come into play. And you've got to be willing to let go of those things. Let go of the distractions. Let go of the things that are holding you back from achieving the life you want. And I'm not going to say that just because you let those things go that automatically your life's going to be like that and you're going to suddenly get everything you want right away. No, I mean, like I'm writing my latest fiction book and then, I'll get that out there and then I'll write another book and all that. I'm going to continue writing. And it might take me years to get to the point where my writing is making enough money that I'm able to sustain myself, and I'm okay with that. I'm on this journey where I'm going to do it regardless, but it brings me joy and purpose to do it. It gives me focus, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. And I think, there was something on Shark Tank where a person was saying, if you haven't cried about your dream, you haven't dreamt big enough. Well, I've definitely cried about my dreams sometimes. And I've realized sometimes, like, man, like, this is an uphill battle. So often, and I say this as someone who's been a self-employed business owner, so often entrepreneurship is presented as like you find that shortcut, you find that thing. And for some people that may really happen, but a lot of times what people don't realize is there's a journey of 1,000 steps to get there. And the same is true with your magical work. With all the magical work that I've done over the years, it's not, and things like that, it's not like it's just come like that. It's stuff that I've had to work for and work on. And some of that has necessarily involved letting go of things that don't work for me anymore. So, like with essentialism, it's really kind of helping me to change even my magical practice. I've found that, like, in working with somebody else, it's given me some perspective and clarity around things that I want to do and work on, and how I want to manifest my life. It's given me some idea on, like, what really matters to me, the experiences that I want to have, the adventures that I want to have. With my spiritual practice, I've been focusing a lot more on exploring, for example, the turning of the wheel of the year. And I know some people might think, like, well, dude, you're like a magical experimenter. Why would you do that? And my answer to that would be, sometimes you have to go backwards to the past, to something that seems basic, and actually you end up discovering a lot of things about it that aren't basic. For me, exploring the wheel of the year has been anything but a basic experience. It's been a very moving, transformative experience that's really helped me appreciate certain aspects of space-time magic that I didn't necessarily have the appreciation of before. Like, when I look at essentialism, I look at it in terms of, like, what are the life habits, the spiritual habits, the choices that you want to do, that you can do, where you get to the point where they're like in the background, and you do them without even having to really think about them, and you can focus on the things that you do need to think about. You can focus on them a lot more, because everything else is sorted out, and you've got your life. You've got like 98% of your life just sorted out and focused on. You figured it out. You don't have to think about it any further than that. Like, I know that the more I get certain things figured out, and then let go of having to really even think about them, the more focused and targeted and happy I am, because I'm doing the things that really matter to me. And I think that that's really important. It's not something that's always talked about as much as it could be. And how this applies to magic is, like, look at your magical practice as well, and ask yourself, like, what am I focusing on that's a distraction, and what am I focusing on that's really important to me, and where can I take that? All right, that's it for today, and thank you for watching and liking and commenting if you did. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.